opportunities of hacking.
That's why I'm a huge fan of Bitcoin. I mean, I'm very, very long Bitcoin. People ask me, on Twitter, I got into a long conversation with a guy over the weekend, and he asked me what my favorite Bitcoin companies were, and I said none. I said, right now you just want to own the underlying commodity. Like Google didn't choose to be in the USD, US dollar business. Google is a business that's amazing that just happens to get paid in US dollars. Similarly, I'd rather own Bitcoin than try to find the onesie-twosie guy at the edges right now. Now, over the long history of time, there will need to be on-ramps and off-ramps, and companies will be successful. But in the short term, owning that currency and allowing water to find its level, particularly in the developing markets, is huge. And if you don't think that this thing is going to rip, when Brazil goes through a devaluation, when the Indian rupee continues to get crushed, when you have all of this money trying to get in and out of these countries where there's massive, political instability or monetary or financial instability, you're being naive. It doesn't matter what happens in the United States. It doesn't matter what happens in Japan. It doesn't matter what happens in the EU. It doesn't matter. It matters what happens in Argentina, in Venezuela, in Kenya, in Brazil, in India, in Russia, in China. And when you look at where all the activity is, it's in all of those markets.
Yep.
This will be born out of a people's desire to have unfettered access to capital. Yep. So again, on that sociological theme, that's another area which
I know friends who had their wealth stolen in some of the European countries, right? Sure. And that freaks out anybody else who has wealth in those countries, and they start thinking about, how can I protect my wealth?
Look what the Nazis did during World War II. It's disgusting. If you have ways to protect and hide your wealth, your hard-earned money, I mean, I think it's a really profound, important thing. And so then the third thing is, none of those things matter if you die. And so I think there's this just fundamental precept that people have, which is, how do I understand my body better? And how do I incorporate things into my life that allow me to live smarter, longer, healthier?
I want better experiences.
But that's fine. But you can choose to optimize around that, because you live in a country where your quality of life isn't going to be materially different unless you're extremely sick, right? Because they will find a way to solve it, and you can make the bet, by the way, which is not unreasonable, that most of the diseases that you are likely to get based on your specific genome can and will be fixed by the time you get them. Yeah. Right? And so, you just have to make a bet in the next 35 to 40 years that stuff gets figured out.
At SRI, I saw a cancer sensor that could have saved Steve Jobs' life. He just was born 30 years too early, right?
I mean,
you can see cancer in your bloodstream at very minute amounts, and
I mean, well, the thing is, you can see these DNA fragments in there very, very early, and if you can do the interpretation. So, and in that third area, I kind of like...
In 10 years, that sensor, by the way, right now it's like a file cabinet, It'll be an eighth of an inch on your fingernail. Exactly. Just Wi-Fi started the same way, right?
I mean, I think in that wearables, if we want to go into that area for a second, to me, there are these three pillars of things that everybody cares about. Everyone wants to identify, everyone wants to collect, and everybody wants to interpret. And if you find products that kind of allow yourself to do those three things, it doesn't have to be great. It just has to be well, and the reason, or even reasonably okay. And the reason is because there's nothing that's come before it. We're just so new in this world.
Yep.
I think it has a lot of legs. So I'll give you an example, right?
And it's getting better. I mean, the Nike Fuel Band is really pretty crude if you really look at the data.
Yeah.
But the one coming out in September or in the next month, or will be announced in the next month, is much better.
Much better, and all the rumors we've heard about the Apple Watch, looks like it's a part biometric sensor as well as a watch, and I mean, if that comes out to be true, then I think that's quite interesting. But
Tim Cook's on the board of Nike too, so he knows what's coming from Nike, and he's got to make sure that it works. Nike's thing works great with Apple products, right? That's how it works, right?
So, take an example of, we found this really great entrepreneur based in Wisconsin. He was a professor at UW, and he built a really simple Bluetooth sensor that sits on top of your asthma inhaler. And there's a lot of people with asthma. By the way, asthma is increasing with the prevalence of all the foreign pollutants and particulates in the air. There was a study I saw that, at one point in California, 30% of the particulate was foreign, and it came from China via the jet stream.
Yeah.
And so you have these incidences where, average temperatures are rising because of global warming. FYI, it exists. Second, you have all this foreign particulate. The byproduct of that are respiratory issues, and they're becoming meaningful and they're compounding. And the downstream impact is that you basically get asthma attacks, you can't breathe, you have to go to the hospital, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So he said something very simple, which is, well, why don't I just find a way to identify and collect this thing, and I can interpret it for you, and I can solve your problem. So how does he do that? Simple Bluetooth cap that sits on top of your asthma inhaler. It works on all of them. He's also launching a product that covers your Advair too, which is like the round one versus the more traditional pump. And it works for people, asthmatics, and we have a product that's coming out for COPD. But you use it, and over the course of a few days, it's collecting data.
Yep.
And it takes all that data and sends it into a model, and all of a sudden what it does is now it starts to send you notifications. And it says, Chamath, the pollen counts are high. Take a preventative dose before you walk out the door, and guess what happens? People do, because they're not stupid. People are smart. And guess what happens? They don't get asthma attacks. They don't go to the hospital. You prevent the emergency room visits. You're not paying $5,000 out of your own pocket.
Yeah.
It's so simple.
Yep. We have a whole book, a chapter in our book on what it's doing for healthcare, the sensors and wearable computers and machine learning and all that stuff.
It's just so powerful.
Yeah. Even social pressure. There's a company called Kias that you play at work with I think 6 other people on the team, and they put pressure on you to go work out and do the right thing.
There's a great company that hopefully you will go meet that I started with 2 younger kids that went to my college, University of Waterloo, and they were scheduled to go work at Apple, actually, of all things, and AMD. One guy was going to go to Apple, and I was going to AMD. And I saw their 4th year design project, and I said, no way, this has to be a company. And what they built, and it's extremely accurate EMG biosensor.
Yep.
And what we've built is a product where you wear these sensors because they're woven into your clothes, and into an extremely degree of high detail, you can understand all of your muscle exertion, your power exertion, all the major muscle groups, how they're all interacting. You can see it visualized in real time on your phone if you want. It can show you imbalances. It can show you how to prevent injury. It can show you how to rehabilitate. I mean,
how much does that cost? Right now, it's not productized yet.
We're gonna. It is productized. It's launching in the next few months.
Yeah.
You will see it, and they will give you a shirt and shorts so that you can wear it. It will blow your mind.
Wow.
And it's a few $100s.
Great for athletes.
It's great for people who want to prevent injury. It's great for people who just want to know what's going on. It's great for people who just want to be fit. It's great for people who have a bad back and actually want to train their back a little bit better. It's great for everybody. It's great for moms. It's great for everybody.
Better living through sensors.
I mean, to your point, like, people really have a latent, I think, desire to understand and to improve themselves in every facet of their lives, right? I mean, like, Google works because it's amazing, because like we don't have to go through an intermediary to get information.
Yep.
Because we have this latent need to be informed and to be a participant of the world.
Yep.
Why wouldn't that extend to your own physical being?
Well, Google now is bringing, thanks to the Google Glass, and I'm wearing this glass, it brings me information before I even know I need it, right? When I walk through a geofence, it says, hey, there's something here you should know about.
Right.
Field Trip is that, and Google now is doing that with
and then we've talked about sort of like integrated plasmonics, which to me is like the
integrated,
risky integrated plasmonics.
Plasmonics.
So this is the company, I think we talked about this briefly, but it is probably the single riskiest thing that we've done. We've invested inordinately large amounts of money. We'll keep doing it. It may fail. The likelihood is that it's going to work. It's already working, but I mean really work at scale. And they've taken a camera chip and they've refactored that into a little cube that can, with a drop of your blood, tell you what's happening inside your body. You want to take a heart panel, you want to take an enzyme test, you want to test yourself at home to make sure that you can be the best you. Crowdsource all of these things, figure out ways where people with your physiology, your ethnicity, your age, your body mass composition, how they've taken steps to improve their being with simple, small changes, understand all of that, know that in real time.
Yeah.
I think we're kidding ourselves when we think like, none of us care, and like even if like we're really
No,
in
I know,
shape,
I know,
we all
know this.
care.
My wife lost 30 pounds with her Fitbit, right? And that's a very crude device compared to what you just described.
But now imagine marrying those two things up. Our view of the world is things like Fitbit are incredible. The Jawbone Up, amazing products that people, Nike Fuel Bands, but marry them with something that then also gives you insight to the inside of your body.
Yeah.
Right?
How do we go from this data silo world, and I'll talk about it in a different context too. We're all, like my Basis watch has my heart rate information and it's in one system, and then, my Google Now knows what I searched and it's in a different system, and Facebook knows what I liked this morning and it's in a different system, and they're not really all hooked up together. I'm trying to hook them up with like IFT, IFTTT, and it's okay, but it's crude and it feels like.
Well, I'll tell you how it's not going to work.
Feels like a 1980s Silicon Valley breadboard.
Well, I'll tell you how it's not going to work. It's not going to work via IFT.
Yeah.
It's not going to work by some open data collective, bullshit marketing group that somebody spins up with some working group and all this other crap. I think it's going to work.
Standards body.
Oh my God! Just like let's all just shoot ourselves right now. That stuff never works. I think the way that it's probably going to work is that a handful of companies who are leading the way basically say, here's the way this is all going to get published, and we're going to start first.
Yep.
And it's just going to be a massive soup, and you as a consumer should know that it's basically available, and these are open APIs, they're not gated, and you decide the N+ first app that you want to give access to it, and it's there.
Yep.
And I think that's probably what will happen. And it'll probably take 1 or 2 years, and it'll probably take some forward-thinking companies to do that. But it's not going to require some open data standard and any of that stuff. It's just, here it is. It's an XML spec. There it is.
Put it on GitHub. Open source.
Yeah. And,
Open source.
And I think that's probably what's going to happen. And the reason is because the data in and of itself, people will realize in V1 of everything, people think the data is valuable. And I think in V2 and beyond, people realize the interpretation of the data is actually valuable.
Yeah.
And so, are the photos in Facebook valuable? To a degree. I think the tags on photos in Facebook make it invaluable in many ways, because that metadata really binds and ties everything together. Otherwise, you just have a trillion photos and you wouldn't know which photo to show to which person, right? So if you think about it along those lines, I suspect that what will happen is a few of these companies will show such tremendous value in interpretation that then it'll be much easier for everybody else to basically say, okay, I don't mind being open here, I don't mind sharing, and I have to find a way to really differentiate myself. Okay, so the fact that I walked 10,000 steps, what does it mean? Who knows what it means? Yeah. Nobody knows. The longitudinal implications of this stuff, unclear. Yeah. But when you marry that, maybe with an understanding of your physiology using the integrated plasmonics product, and maybe you use, the sensor company and understand your physical muscle, and then you put them into a model, and some company says, here's an interpretive way for you to optimize and be your best you.
Yeah.
Not for you to be Michael Jordan or LeBron James, but for you to just be the best you. Now, I think everybody wants that.
Yeah. That part a lot of people get. Even people who are couch potatoes like me, I get that, right? Where I think business people are missing the next tide is when you walk into the Ritz right now, they don't know anything about you. And soon they will.
Yeah.
Right now they have 4 computer systems running the Ritz, right? One to run the hotel, one to run their main restaurant, one to run their spa, and one to run the small restaurant, which is different. It's a different computer system than runs their big restaurant, right? Big restaurants run by open.
You know who solved this problem, but in a different context?
Yeah.
So if you go into a casino and you're a known card counter, they can visually identify you from the security cameras.
Yeah.
They know to send an alert. They know to then go and notify you, or to notify, the pit bosses. And they know the pit bosses to come over to talk to you, the security people to come over and escort you out. Now, that's a negative use case. But the positive use case is Rob Scoble walks into the Wynn. Wow, he's been here 5 times. He spent on average $600 each time he's been here. Let me go and greet him. Let me actually have someone take him out of line, bring him to the concierge, have him check in personally. Let me give him a coupon for $100 off. You're absolutely right.